Hickok 45 with the Dallas Police Department. Glad you came by today. Why am I doing this? Some of you already know, don't you? Yes, this is an Italian rifle, and it's set up like a fairly famous setup, as you probably already know, right? And it is called, are you ready? The Carcano. Or no, wait, it's the Carcano. Yeah, well, we'll decide how to pronounce it. You always want to use the proper pronunciation. And you also don't want to ever mispronounce the word pronunciation and say pronunciation, okay? Just a little tip, no charge. Yeah, this is the firearm that is famous from Dallas, 1963, November 22nd, right? And that's a famous photograph. I thought I would run that off and show it in case you haven't seen it. I can't imagine anybody not having seen that. Yeah, this is a Carcano. It is a Model 38 set up exactly the way Lee Harvey Oswald had his. A fellow locally here in the Nashville area offered to lend this to us. He has been setting this up and everything this way, and wanted to know if we would like to borrow it for a video. And I said, yeah, because I'd never done a Carcano. And I always thought, well, if I do one, probably do the carbine or the M38, whichever one it was, you know, just probably just maybe one, because I'm not a huge fan of the Carcano. Carcano. I'm not a huge fan of it to begin with. I mean, they're okay. But if I do one, I'd like maybe to do this one, okay? I am not like fascinated with firearms that are involved in like murders and that sort of thing. I think you all know that some people are, but it does have a lot of history, especially this model set up this way. So thought I would share it with you and the firearms. So we'll talk a little bit about the Kennedy thing, and then we'll talk about the Carcano, okay, or Carcano. Which would you rather I pronounce it? You know, on that topic, I saw a video, I don't know, it's been a while back, some guy by the name of Ian on some channel by the name of Forgotten Weapons. And he said Carcano. I heard him say Carcano. And it came to me because my entire life I'd heard everybody pronounce it Carcano, okay? And whenever I'd heard it. But when I heard Ian say Carcano, I thought, you know what? Everybody else is probably wrong, because Ian is a smart guy. Everybody knows that. Gun Jesus is a smart guy, and he is a scholar. So he's probably right. I researched it, yeah, as if I had to. He is right. It is Carcano. The stress is on the first syllable, okay? But everybody, even the curators at the NRA Museum, and anybody you see talking about it, almost other than Ian, who gets it right, says Carcano. Okay, so I'm going to say Carcano so you won't be so annoyed. It's kind of like the Garin thing, you know. So Carcano is what it will be today, all right? And yeah, this is the exact setup, and we'll shoot it, and I'll tell you about it, but this is the exact scope. The viewer bought that scope from, was it Redding Sporting Goods Store in California, and they're the ones who imported all these from Japan, you know, back in whenever it was, 1960 or something. And then they sold a bunch of them to Klein's Sporting Goods in Michigan, and that's where Oswald ordered it from. And they bought I think thousands of the scopes in that one buy. So this scope, literally, this scope that's on this rifle, was shipped with the same one that Oswald used. You know, I've been lying right next to it when they picked him up to ship his when he ordered it, mail order. So if that, you know, matters to you, but I mean, it's the same batch, it's the real deal, it's not a replica. Okay, it's not a great scope, but it's that's what it is. And this is a Model 38, the same gun, you know, same setup. It's the same gun, the Model 38 Carcano. Okay, and you know, we'll talk about the rifle and the Carcano and everything, and I'll probably go back and forth on my pronunciation. Thanks to Ian for, you know, hearing that and getting that in my head, the correct way to say it. That's a certificate they sent him with the scope and everything. So, you know, again, it's kind of interesting, set up a gun historically, you know, whether, you know, it doesn't mean you're fascinated with murder and that sort of thing, of course. You know, if I knew exactly what Wider carried daily, you know, in Tombstone, maybe I'd want a Colt set up exactly like his, maybe with the same grips, and maybe he did something to his sight that was a little different. You know, maybe I'd want a Colt that was exactly like that or something. I don't know. We're funny about things like that, aren't we? So that's the rifle. You know, the Italian rifle that was theirs, the Carcano, starting in like 1891, I think was the first adoption, the long rifle. And it's sort of borrowed, especially this one, it's sort of borrowed from the old Gavir 88 that John got me a couple, 3 years ago. You've seen that in the video, I hope. And you know, you got that Mannlicher style magazine and everything, and the feed system where it uses an en-bloc clip. It's a little different for that one, but so they kind of borrowed from that to some extent. And it does use the en-bloc clip. You can see the Mannlicher style magazine there. Now it's not a Mannlicher Carcano. I've seen, I mean, a lot of people call it that, but it's really Carcano. This is a model 38, okay, for 1938. All right. Okay, the early ones were long, and you know, like most of those rifles. And before I go too far, I want to. So anyway, I just wanted to show you that photograph of this plastic time. I've been to Dealey Plaza. You may have seen me. I found a piece of brass there, in fact. Check out the FAQ playlist. I'm at Dealey Plaza in Dallas, and I actually found some brass on the ground in the grass. And yeah, I sent it to the FBI, but I haven't heard anything back from them. This is what, a couple, 3 years ago. All right. So I really did. Well, at least I faked it. Okay, put it that way. And while we're talking about the Kennedy thing, first of all, save your conspiracy. I know nothing about it. Nobody really knows and all that. Yeah, but everybody has an answer, right? We all know the truth. We all know the truth, right? Whatever truth we want to believe, that's the truth, right? But I did go through, my wife and I went through the Texas Book Depository or whatever, and went through the tour of that, and hung around there and looked out the window up there. You can't get to the very window, but you can get within, you know, just a few feet of the actual window, which doesn't really matter. You can stand there and look down on the street where it took place, and shots were fired and everything, and see where Oswald sat and all that. And the big question is, well, I know you're going to ask, well, what do you think? Could he have done it with his rifle? You shoot a lot. Well, you know, I'm not a bolt action kind of guy that just tries to see how fast I can work the action all the time. But I've done enough of it that, yeah, I think so. I mean, you know, I've seen people a lot better than I am with a bolt action. And if I worked at it with this one, even though it's a little bit rough, yeah, you can get off 3 or 4 shots that much time, you know, and with a scope, and you practice it. I mean, you know, so I think the shots and everything were perfectly possible. You know, it's just my opinion, you know. So, but now whatever the conspiracies and what really happened and, you know, that sort of thing, that's up for you to fantasize about, okay? And cling to your favorite conspiracy, okay? Whatever feels the best. There's evidence for every conspiracy, right? So anyway, so get that kind of out of the way. It is kind of interesting. He's got it all set up like that. And really the only thing that makes it, you know, even the sling is a replica of the actual sling that he had. And of course the rifle's not a replica. Again, not to confuse anybody, this is the exact same rifle. In fact, it was made the same year, 1940, at the same place. Turin, I think it was in Italy. I believe that's the name of the town where the armory was. It's made at the same place, the same year. Okay, the only difference between this one and that rifle from Dallas is the serial number. Okay, so anyway, so that got that kind of cleared up, I hope. It's kind of neat. Now, he got the scope to make it authentic and everything, but the scope is horrible. I mean, you just can't see. I don't know if we can give them a look. They'll wonder. That way they won't wonder why we don't look through it too much. But it's like imagine the cloudiest day of your life, the foggiest day of your life, which might be every day if you drink too much or sleep too late or something and don't get any sleep. But yeah, it's really, really, really bad. But it's authentic, and that's pretty cool. And maybe it's fixable. I don't know. You can take it apart and clean it, or what that is. These older scopes, just man, that's one area where technology has come so far, hasn't it? With, you know, scopes, and even cheap scopes today, they're like 1,000,000 times better than the old scopes. And but it has fixed sights and everything. And shoot, let's go ahead and shoot it if I can. Now I had a little issue with some of the clips, the M-block clips, wanting to dump out the rounds kind of early and nosedive and some of that. But the last couple that we fired have done okay. So it's got nice fixed sights. They seem to be right on. I'll use the scope though on the first shot, okay, just to satisfy you all. I better look for something big. Oh, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to put this on. Everybody's seen the gun, how beautiful it is. Look at that beautiful walnut. So I'm going to cover the back of. All right, so I'm going to shoot the gong. I know I can see it through the scope, maybe. Wow, barely. And I'm not even sure it's on. Like I said, we've had a little trouble. Let me try the metal sights. Yeah, the metallic sights seem like they're pretty much on. I hit the red plate maybe on the left, the square one. I was hitting that square red plate, I don't know, yesterday with the scope, but then I was missing it too, so I'm not sure where it's off. Yeah, it's off somehow, and I don't want to mess with it. Okay, so the clip fell out the bottom. You gotta be sure I don't step on it. I'm gonna pop a 2-liter right here. All right. So see, the clip comes out the bottom when you're empty. There it is right there. All right, so that one did pretty well. That last round acted up a little bit. So, model 38, okay? So, Carcano, that is the way most people pronounce it. I did read that Carcano is really wrong. Carcano, I think, if you're going to pronounce it that way, with the stress on the second syllable, you know, you get Carcano. But anyway, they're all wrong unless you say it Carcano, I guess. And I'm not going back through all the history of the Carcano. But you know, 1891, I think was the first adoption. Big old long rifle, kind of like that one, or the old Mosin Model 91s and everything. And they went through the same thing, seems like every country did almost, with their bolt guns. Started out with them, you know, a mile long, big old long barrel, and then realized, if not sooner, after World War I, that long gun was inconvenient, you know, fighting in the trenches and everything, and that they were not shooting at the enemy from 800 yards as often as they thought they might be, right? And but at the same time, most countries had a carbine version, you know, for the cavalry and different you know, folks that were maybe not on the front lines, had a need for a shorter gun. And as with others, I think sometimes they had a version, a carbine that was like a, I don't know, 16-inch barrel or a shorter barrel, much shorter. And you know, not as much blast with this round. It's a 6.5, so but still maybe too short. Okay, and you don't get performance out of the round as much with a really short barrel. And so, you know, all that after World War I, realizing that the Model 91 was really too big, and then some of the carbines and things were awfully short, and they wanted a new cartridge. They wanted a heavier cartridge, a 30 caliber, and so they came up with the Model 38. So this was a kind of a different project, the Model 38. It didn't have the Oswald scope on it, okay, but it was this gun, and they wanted a gun that would shoot 30 caliber, and they'd all been chambered in the 6.5. If I didn't say that, you know, 6.5 by 52. That's what this is. Okay, kind of like a shorter, I guess, Swedish Mauser round. Okay, and so they went to the, was it 7.35? Okay, by 51 millimeter. And that's what this was chambered in. That was the gun, the kind of the reason they wanted a moderate length 21-inch barrel, not the little carbine, not the long rifle. And they made some other improvements. They thought they went to a fixed sight with it, just a durable sight, instead of all these elaborate adjustable sights that would allow you to pick somebody off at 700 yards, as if you could even see somebody at 700 yards, right? So they just went to a nice serviceable fixed sight, front and rear, at the length that they wanted. I think they changed the sling swivels to the side, things like that. And you know, how many countries could we name that have done that with us? The SMLE, all these countries that have bolt guns. Mauser settling on a moderate intermediate length rifle that will serve most people, whether they're cavalry or anything for that matter. Of course, cavalry changed, you know, through the years, what cavalry meant. Okay, now let me put another round in here, put another mag in. I sort of marked these. I think we've not had trouble with these two much. So shoot a couple more rounds here with it. And as I say, when this empties, it falls out the bottom. And when they made this in a larger caliber, now you're asking, well, why is this one 6.5 then, if you don't know? Well, they kind of went back to the 6.5 because this big event was looming, World War II. And they were having problems logistically with the 30 caliber, you know, the 7.35 round, because you could chamber this gun. You could put one of these in there and chamber it, even though it was a 30 caliber. But you got the wrong ammo in the gun. I don't know if you could chamber the 7.35 in this gun or not. If the clip would go in, and I don't know how far the round would get, if not. But anyway, you got potential problems. And so they just went back to the 6.5. They didn't have time to fool with that because it was around 1939 or 40 by that time. And they just needed to make a lot of rifles and have them available, right? All right, let's take another shot or two here. Let's put one on the paper. I think it says, yeah, Carcano. Sorry, Ian. Boom, we got it in the red. Man, what an accurate rifle. Yeah, it's got to smoke some pot. Yeah, we do. How about another 2-liter? Boom. How about a little, whatever that is, soap powder? Boom. It's a nice little round. It holds 6 rounds if you didn't notice. Uh-oh. Guess I touched, oh no, it went through that and then went downward and hit that coffin. As fate would have it. I'm gonna put another one on the gong. Okay, so that whoop, and of course it fell out. There it is, and there's my pad too. Yeah, so there's the unblocked clip. It fell right out there. Okay. So yeah, the Model 38. That was the kind of the story on it, just in a nutshell. They wanted an intermediate size rifle, and they really wanted the bigger round, the 7.35 by 51, I believe. Yeah, they wanted that in it, and they just couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. You know, and that story is a familiar story. I know we've talked about with several companies that were doing things or in the process of changing over a firearm, and then World War II pops up. Can't do it. You need guns, you know. It's no time for innovation. Let's try to make some of these. You know, it's not a good time for that, is it? And also that ammo mix-up, what's that remind you of? Maybe the 45 Colt back in the day when the Schofield came out. You know, the Army had the Schofield for the cavalry, and then they also did the Colt, of course, single action Army. The Smith & Wesson made the Schofield in a shorter cartridge, and it would not chamber the 45 Colt, and that's how it kind of got started being called the 45 Long Colt. You know, even though that's technically incorrect, that's kind of where that comes from, I think. So to differentiate the long Colt, long cartridge from the Schofield, shorter. Well, you know, they'd get a shipment of ammo, and it'd be the the long cartridge, the 45 Colt, and they didn't have any ammo for their Schofields then. So they finally they started, I think, just shipping nothing but Schofield ammo, using it in everything, because it would chamber in the Colt. And then that's one reason the Schofield and the Smith & Wesson didn't really survive, very long in that, with the military at least. So that's a story that we keep learning, a lesson we learn, don't we, eventually. And this is an interesting rifle. As far as my impressions of this, the Carcano, I was looking around the web and I saw there's a lot of people that are virtually mad that the Carcano gets a bad rap. They really consider it a well-made gun and a nice gun, and I guess it is. It's just so mundane. I mean, you look at how it's made. There's just nothing really to write home. I mean, you think about comparing that with a Mauser and some others, bolt guns of the day. It's just so utilitarian, and it almost looks thrown together. The wood's really ugly, of course, but wartime, that doesn't matter. But the action in the bolt is not bad. It has a pretty good reputation, even for being able to work fairly quickly. And it's not bad. It's not bad. It's just not my favorite. Okay, I think with the scope off this one, I could like this rifle a little bit more. Of course, I need my extender. It's a little short. I'll shoot it a few more times. And there's anything else that I know about I was going to tell you about. I'm not as crazy about the Carcano or the Carcano, either one of them. I really don't like either one. No, I'm not as crazy about them. I picked them up in shops, before, and maybe it's because they are kind of short, the stock is, or something. But they're okay. I'm just not. I'm kind of indifferent about them. I can't get excited about them. And apparently there are a lot of collectors and a lot of firearms people feel the same way. And even the Italians, I read that after World War II, of course I'm not sure what all the regulations were for them after they were part of the Axis, but that they went to the Lee Enfield, I read, and then later to the Garand, I don't know, for whatever guns they needed, but and most of these went on the surplus market. And by the way, the 0.35 models, the bigger cartridge in these, most of those I think they gave to Finland, who was kind of at war with Russia at the time. So because there were logistic issues, so they just went back to the 6.5 and pretty much stuck with it. But some of you may have the 7.35 version of this, okay? Because there were a lot of them. Yep, I lost let me put the pad on before I take my last shots here. I want to at least it feel as good as it can. The old Carcano. I'm sorry, Carcano. I'll get it right. Oh, there's a little center block down there. He wants to jerk out of my hands when I try to work the bolt, keeping it up here. Slap it, I guess I could do it. Just really be rough with it. Be mean. Oh, there's another round. I want to shoot an animal. I don't want to hurt them. I'm going to shoot that ram up there. I can. Yeah. There we go. I just had to do that. So, I don't know any other lies to tell you about it, but the model 38, named for the year, 1938. As you know, that was just coming up on World War II, and so they were pleased to have this rifle, I'm sure, and a new cartridge, but this wasn't the best time, as it turns out. And so it went back to 6.5, and they got rid of a lot of the 7.35s and just focused on that round. The one thing I didn't cover, it has a bad reputation for accuracy. You know why? Well, that's the one thing people point out. That's one reason that it gets such a bad rap, is not the gun's fault, it's the ammo's fault. Because when they made it, their 6.5 was designed to be, it was 0.628, okay? Their bullets were 0.628, all right? And so it was a little bit bigger bore. But like all the other 6.5s are like 0.264, okay? Like the Swedish Mauser, I guess, and all the others, and then the modern ones as well. So that's one reason you can't find ammo, really. This PPU stuff is, I think it's just, like a Swedish Mauser bullet, that size, 0.264 or whatever. And so if you have one of these and the barrel's worn at all, or maybe even if it's not, you're not going to get pinpoint accuracy. And you'll see that a lot, around the web, how it's hard to get accuracy with them, because it's hard to find ammo that's large enough bullet. So there's no inherent problem with the accuracy, as I understand. They did change the rifling. They had a gain type of rifling on the originals and some things like that, and then they'd cut those off with carbines, and so a lot of issues there, but I won't go into. But even these, they need a larger bullet, which hard to find, okay? And so I'm not shooting at anything really, really small. If we were bench resting and we had a really good scope on here and we were trying to shoot some groups over there at 80 yards or something, we might find that we just can't get a really good group with the existing ammo, okay? But for my kind of shooting, it does okay. But I'm sure there's some people around that have grouped these things, and even with this ammo, the PPU, and have a lot to say about that. But yeah, the misses and problems we've had are with the scope, really. You can't see through it. You know what I'm talking about there. But it is one of the authentic scopes, so that's pretty interesting. So anyway, the Model 34, Model 38, Carcano, yeah, it's a double rifle. So most people call it the Carcano, and that's just fine, okay? Because I mispronounce Garand, should be Garand, I know, but most of us call it the Garand, and I even call them carbines. I go down to the creek, not the crick, and I use the word route instead of route. I do all kinds of things. I mispronounce a lot of things, so anyway, forgive me. But anyway, that's a look at the old Model 38 Carcano, okay? And not my favorite bolt action rifle, but it's interesting, and like most rifles, these surplus rifles, they have an interesting history, and especially this one, the way it's geared up. So we appreciate the fellow local viewer lending this to us and trusting us with his rifle, and I'm glad you all came out too. So appreciate you supporting the people that support us, and we'll see you again right here on the range. Life is good.
Oh yeah, that's better. This is a great gun for defense. Oh hey, didn't see you guys there. While I've got you here, I want to remind you of our friends over at Talon Grips and Ballistol. Talon Grips makes grips, can you believe it, for all different types of firearms. You can get rough texture or more of a rubberized texture. It just sticks right on there. Really affordable, really cool option to improve the grip for your handguns or rifles. So please check them out at talongungrips.com. You'll be glad you did. And also Ballistol. Dad has been using Ballistol for many years. It's a cleaner and a lubricant, and it's non-toxic. It works really great, and we're happy to have them on board since it's been a part of our shooting endeavor for a very long time. So go to ballistol.com, talongungrips.com, and also while you're out there, I'm juggling all these things here. Also, while you're on the internet, please do check out our other social media like Hickok45 on Facebook. There's also Hickok45 on Twitter, The Real Hickok45 on Instagram. There's a John_Hickok45 on Instagram where I do some things. There's Hickok45.com. You can find us also on Gunstreamer. So check out all that stuff and then watch more videos.